Well, hello everyone. Now, before I start my video, I will just make a short statement. With all the content creators creeping out of the woodworks recently, neglecting or abusing their children, I have decided that my current fundraiser that was going towards the Aussie firefighters has now ended. New donations will be going to preventchildabuse.org. They have an excellent rating. Not only do they help children once they're abused, but they also help families in need so that the risk of child abuse is reduced. They have parenting tips, groups for discussions, and advice from experts. Now, child abuse and animal abuse are two of my pet peeves. So this fundraiser will probably stay for quite a while. Any donation towards the goal will be greatly appreciated, either through my Streamlabs or through their own website. A few people have said that they would like some Nordic folklore videos, and since I'm not sure where my channel is headed, I thought, why not? I personally love ancient mythology and folklore, but I figured I would start with the Nordic mythology, or Norse mythology if you will. The Asgardian faith, or Asatru, as it's called in Sweden. Many of you will most likely only know this through the current Avengers movie, and if you had some prior knowledge, it would most likely be just Thor and Odin you know more about. So, before we start, let me slip into something more appropriate. So strap yourselves in. In the beginning there was...
In the beginning there was Howard the Duck.
They call him Howard the Duck. No way to conceal it.
Hold on. This isn't right. Who put this in the playlist? Of course. Of course it would be Biff. Do I even need to ask at this point? Biff! Little creep is hiding again. Oh, I'll get him. Don't worry. Now, as I was saying, the Norse mythology wasn't codified until around 1220 CE. This was after the Nordic countries had started their Christian Reformation, around 1000 CE. Prior to that, all that existed, as far as we know, were stories passed down from the word of mouth. The Norse mythology was codified by Snorre Sturlason in two works that are called the Prosaic Edda and the Poetic Edda. It's quite possible that the Icelandic version, the codified version, is not exactly the same as the stories would have been told in the rest of Scandinavia. But since this is all we have, this is what we'll go with. Now, I will try to Norse up the names of the gods, the creatures, the events, and so on. Now, I will not get them completely right, because Swedish have moved very far from the Norse language, mainly because of its influences from other countries in the years that have passed, mainly German and English. If you want a language that is close to what the old Norse Vikings spoke, then you'll have to talk to an Icelandic person. Due to the isolated nature of their island, they didn't have that much influence from other countries as the rest of Scandinavia did. So they will have a much easier time getting the pronunciations perfect. So, if some Icelandic person sees this, you probably would have said these things better. You will notice that there are some similarities to other religions of the past, or even current religions. Most likely, these were brought back from raids, or in some cases, possibly brought along to the new lands via raids. All depending on the time of the other religions, of course. Let's see if you can spot any. Let me know in the comments below. Right, on to the meat of the issue. In the beginning, there were 3 worlds. Furthest south was Muspelheim, a world fully engulfed in flame and heat, where the flames danced and the fires raged. Farthest north was Niflheim, where blizzard reigned and constant frost covered the land. In the heart of Niflheim was the spring Hvegleme, where the 11 rivers ran. These rivers were called Elivagar. There is, however, contention about the numbers of rivers. So it's either 11 or it's 1. Not that it really has much bearing on the story. Moving on. In between both of these lands was a giant void called Ginnungagap. The Elivagar crashed down into the void. The Elivagar were created from poisonous sludge that froze to ice. And from this ice rose a mist that then slowly dripped down and created hoarfrost. This went on for ages, until Ginnungagap was no longer a void, but a frost-coated land. So the north part of Ginnungagap was constantly berated with cold, snow, and hail, while the south part was hit constantly with heat and lava. However, in the middle of Ginnungagap, there was temperate weather, calm and tranquility. When the frozen storms of Niflheim and the heat waves of Muspelheim met each other, the snow began to melt and form drops of water that fell to the ground. These drops carried life with them, and they joined together and they formed a giant. The giant's name was Ymir. He was a frost giant and thus born with evil in his heart. At the same time that some of these drops formed Ymir, they formed another creature. That was the ancestor of all cows, Adumbla. Ymir drank from Adumla's teats and got nourished from her milk, while Ymir slept, his left leg mated with his right leg, and thus creating the first frost giants, or, as I'm going to refer to them from now on, Rimturs. And from the sweat of his armpits, the first humans were born. They were called Lif and Liftrasir. Adumbla herself got nourished from licking the stones covered with salty hoarfrost. And one time she found a really big stone and continued to lick the same stone for a very long time. After a while, a scalp was shown inside the stone. As Adumbla kept licking the stone, more and more of the being was revealed. Eventually, all of the being was freed from the stone. This being was Buri. He was the first of the gods created. Buri then, somehow, it's not clear how it happened, he might be self-reproducing as Ymir was. He had a son. That son was called Bur. While Buri and Bur were born, more and more Rimturs were also born, populating most of Ginnungagap. Bur then took a Rimturs as his wife, and she became the mother of all Aesir, or Asgardians if you like. They had 3 sons, Odin, Hönur, and Lothar. Now, there is some contention on who Lothar is. Some interpret him as Loki. The other names for Hönur and Lothar are Vile and Ve. I'm going to go with the first names. As Odin, Hönur, and Lothar grew up, more and more Rimturs were covering the lands. The gods saw the evil and destruction left in the wake of the Rimturs and Ymir. Odin, Hönur, and Lothar decided that it was time to slay the ancient giant Ymir. And so they did. From the wounds of Ymir flowed massive cold blood Many of the Rimturs were killed in the floods of this blood. Only a few of them actually managed to survive. These were Belgemir and his house. They fled to the cold mountains of Jotunheim and became ancestors of future Rimturs. One lone Turs fled to Muspelheim, where he created a throne for himself and a flaming sword. This Turst became the first Flame Turst. This character is very important later on as I go more into Thor, Mjolnir, and Ragnarök, so keep him in mind. His name was Surtur. Now, Odin, Hönur, and Lothur carried Ymir's body to the center of Guninagap and created the world from his remains. His flesh became soil, his bones became mountains. His crushed bones and teeth became boulders and big rocks. Out of the blood they created lakes, rivers, and oceans. Maggots appeared in Ymir's flesh. The gods decreed that these should acquire human understanding and also be shaped into the form that were almost human. They were the dwarves. They were very human-like, although they lived in the ground and in stone. They lifted Ymir's skull up in the air, and thus created the sky. They placed 4 dwarves to guard the sky. These dwarves' names were Austur, or east, Vestur, or west, Northur, the north, or Söder, south. From the sparks of Muspelheim, the gods created stars and placed them in the sky. Out of 2 tree trunks, the gods then fashioned the first humans created by the gods. They were Ask and Embla, and gave them consciousness, feelings, and intelligence. They then formed Mythgarthur, and from the eyebrows of Ymir, they formed a wall around Mythgarthur. Around Mythgarthur is also a vast, impassable ocean. In this water resides a giant serpent called Mythgarthur's Ormur that bites its own tail. This is where Ask and Embla reside and will populate the world of humans. The gods then fashioned Esgarthur and connected a bridge between Mythgarthur and Esgarthur. This bridge was called Bifrost and was often depicted as a rainbow. Esgarthur is the world that is in the highest of all worlds on Yggdrasil. I'll get into Yggdrasil shortly. Odin resides in Valaskjalf, the biggest and tallest of all buildings in Esgarth, and is said to have a roof completely made of silver. Odin also had 2 other types of halls. Valhall, where Odin meets the warriors fallen in battle, and where they reside after their death to party and celebrate. In his other hall, called Gimle, this is where Odin meets the righteous people that led a good life but didn't die in battle. This is a comfortable life where the people have no needs or wants, but it's clearly not as glamorous as Valhall. Now, for the people that were neither righteous nor died valiantly in battle, there is but one place that awaits them: Helheim. In Helheim, Loki's daughter Helge resides and commands the dead. There are some inconsistencies regarding who ends up in Helheim. It all depends on if you go by the somewhat Christianized version of Norse mythology or not. Before, it was thought that everyone that didn't die courageously in battle ended up in Helheim. That went for women and children alike, along with those that didn't follow the Norse gods, of course. Later on, as I stated, Gime was added, likely to give women something to look forward to, as they did not engage in battle quite as often as the men did, to give them something to look forward to and not to despair over their dead children. Now, to Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil is the tree of life. Upon its roots and branches all the worlds reside. Underneath each of its roots is a special well. Urdarbrunn is the first of these wells. This is where the gods hold meetings to decide the future. The second well is Mimirsbrunnur. This is the well of knowledge and wisdom, and will hold a big place in Norse mythology, as we will see as we get into the next episode where we focus on the gods. And the third one is Hvergelmer, as I talked about in the beginning. This river gave Yggdrasil the water it needed to come to life and grow. Now, there are a few mythical creatures living on and around Yggdrasil. Above the crown of Yggdrasil soars a mighty yet unnamed eagle. In the crown of the tree resides 4 deer: Dolin, Valin, Duneir, and Raufur. They consume only the highest growing leaves of the mighty tree. At the roots of Yggdrasil resides a powerful serpent. Its name is Nithugr. This serpent constantly gnaws at the roots of Yggdrasil. On the trunk of Yggdrasil lives a squirrel called Ratatoskr, who acts as kind of a messenger between the mighty eagle and Nithugr. These two are mortal enemies, and the squirrel mainly delivers taunts and quips from one to the other. Odin also tells about an enormous amount of snakes residing around the various parts of Yggdrasil, constantly chewing on the tree. Some of these are Grafvitnir, Gråbaker, Grafvölutur, Öfnir, and Svofnir. Under the roots, close to Urdarbrunn, dwells the 3 Nornur. They're called Urthur, Skuld, and Verthandi, where they cover the roots of Yggdrasil from Urdurbrunner's water to keep it strong and alive. The Nornur are keepers of the fate of humans, where they spin the threads of everyone's lives. The worlds on the branches and roots of Yggdrasil are from the top to bottom. At the very top is Esgarthur, where the Aesir dwell. Underneath Esgarthur, connected by Bifrost, is Mithgarthur, the middle realm that connects all other realms. To the northeast of Mithgarthur is Vanaheimir, and it's generally thought that this is where the Aesir of fertility resided. To the northwest of Mithgarthur is Alfheim, where the elves resided. To the east of Mithgarthur is Niflheim, the realm of eternal frost and ice and the home of the Rimturs. To the west of Mithgarthur is Muspelheim, the realm of fire, lava, and smoke, also the home of the Fireturst and Surtur. To the southeast of Mithgarthur is Neithavellir. This is the land of the dwarfs and the dark elves. To the southwest of Mithgarthur is Jotunheim, and this is the land of the normal Turst, the one that aren't frost giants or fire giants. And lastly, directly to the south of Mithgarthur is Helheim, the land of death, and the residence of Helge. This about covers the basics. The next part will be more in depth of the gods themselves. Stay tuned for that, and I hope you learned something new. Not quite like the Marvel movies, huh? Bye guys.